going to play some sound here, okay? And I want to make something clear. I mean, you've said this a couple of times, and I want to just sort of make this point clear, that we're talking about, it's one thing to say that, yes, of course, not everyone in the South is racist. Not all Republicans are racist. There are racist Democrats. In fact, for a while, they were a voting bloc in the Democratic Party when we called them Reagan Democrats. For the most part, that was driven. I mean, to a large extent, the Democratic Party has moved, broadly speaking, to a different coalition that is not as racist or did not have the same sort of relative strength of racist elements. But, I mean, let's just play this clip first. Let's start with this clip. Jeb Bush, this is the first thing he said. Remember, he followed this, I'll remind people what he followed this up with, but this is what he said. This is indicative of a guy who is trying to run for the Republican presidential nomination, knows he has trouble with a large percentage, 50% of the Republican base.
Tell me at least some of that isn't because of who his wife and his kids are.
Very possibly. But we can tell you this. We can assure you from this comment that this is what he thinks. And he's the expert, right? He's the expert running towards these people. Play this.
Our hotel was literally a block away from the AME church, and it was not appropriate to continue to campaign. But it is appropriate to mourn, because we know that a house of God is a house of peace and brotherhood, and the violence that took place in that church just breaks our heart. And this was an evil act of aggression. I don't know what was on the mind or the heart of the man who committed these atrocious crimes, but I do know what was in the heart of the victims.
Now, put aside the fact that Jeb seems to know what was in the heart of the victims, but
maybe he can figure out some hearts, but not others.
Right. And then I'll remind people, followed up, Laura Bassett, I think from Huffington Post. I asked Bush again if the shooting was racist. He said, quote, 9 people lost their lives and they were African American. You can judge what it is. How is it that this guy who has so many other judgments, ranging from the most banal to the most sophisticated, cannot call this a racist act? Why is he so determined not to say that? That tells you everything you need to know about the Republican Party.
If I can remind you something quickly, which is, to further tie what I was talking about earlier into each other, the first Stand Your Ground law, which, of course, many people know the history now with Trayvon Martin being murdered and others, and the large percentage of those cases that are whites who just feel fear and decide they have to kill somebody black. And remember, it's what's in their minds that counts. They thought it was they were under some sort of an attack, even if some African American was just walking by them. That was Jeb Bush who led that charge and passed that first law in Florida before it went out to other states. So just keep that in mind, and that is a law that is as close to being blatantly racist as possible.